Do you believe that to change your life, you just have to be more disciplined? That if you could just push harder, grind longer, or force yourself more, you would finally have the life that you want? Look, this is the truth that no one's ever taught us. You actually don't need more discipline. What you need is a new self-image. And a self-image is basically the picture that you have of yourself in your mind. So it's the way that you secretly view yourself, or the version of yourself that you assume that you are. And even further, it's the limits that you've accepted without ever realizing it. I was so lucky to understand this early. If you don't know me, my name is Bianca St. George, and I'm a professional soccer player. And to become a pro athlete, we had to believe that we had what it took to become one before we got there. So it's almost like we had to believe we were professional athletes before we ever signed our first contract. And if I talk to all my teammates, we all had that same belief. Because once that identity was there, discipline became inevitable. It was part of who we were because we believed that we were already that version of ourselves. Once we believed we could be a professional athlete, we started acting like one. So our self-image came first and then discipline followed. Most people never take the time to examine how they view themselves. But that's a problem because you're letting your identity create your reality on autopilot. But right now, your identity is not programmed for success. And then you end up blaming lack of discipline when in reality, it's not discipline. It's your belief systems about who you think you are and what you think you deserve. If you don't change your self-image, you'll always struggle to start new habits because you will never be able to outperform your old identity. But luckily, identity isn't fixed. It's programmable. And this isn't a woo-woo idea. This was shown by the work of Dr. Maxwell Maltz in the book Psycho-Cybernetics. I read that book a few years ago, and then it became so obvious why I have always been able to achieve new goals for myself because I always could believe that I could get there. I always had the identity of that person that would achieve those goals. So it's impossible for me to come on here and not tell you about it because it works. And he proves that the most effective way to rewrite your identity is through this one technique: visualization. Now, if you've been an athlete in your life, you've definitely visualized your performances and you know how powerful that is. But also, if you're a high performer or a working professional and you had a big presentation, or remember in school when you had to do something, if you looked in your mind and you were able to visualize you performing at your highest level, you always showed up more prepared the next day. So now we're going to do the same thing, but towards your identity for 2026. And that identity is the version of yourself that actually achieves your goals. And the reason why visualization works is because discipline always fights your old identity and it requires tons of effort. So changing through discipline alone is very difficult. But when you visualize, you install a new identity so that it naturally does the work for you. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how to visualize your new identity so that you can finally start acting, thinking, and showing up like the person you want to become in 2026. This is part 5 of my 15-part series that I'm running through the whole month of December. And all of my videos in December is exactly to prepare you for 2026. We have just wrapped up week 1 of December, which was all about reviewing and closing your year of 2025. So if you haven't done that, I would suggest you do it because you don't want to bring in old limiting beliefs from last year into the new year. But changing your life and finally achieving your goals will require a lot of introspection. And if you want to go deeper and really make sure that you do all the work properly so you can prepare your best, you should do the self-improvement challenge that's running through the month of December. It's the first link in my description, and in there you'll have journal prompts, you'll have a worksheet, you'll have a workbook, and everything is there to support you so that next year you can naturally fall into the new identity that will actually achieve your dreams. Now let's get into the video. The content of this video will be separated into 3 parts. The first 2 will be really quick. We'll go into the background on how he discovered the power of self-image and why it works, and then what people do wrong when they visualize. The third part is where we're going to actually go through how to actually visualize. It's a 4-part process. Now, how did he discover this? Dr. Maltz was a plastic surgeon. And he noticed something very strange in his patients after surgery. Most of them, after surgery, did not have anything change about their lives. A lot of people that went into surgery wanted to get something changed about themselves because they thought that it would improve their life. But he noticed that it only improved their lives if it changed their identity that they held about themselves. Some people look completely different after surgeries, but because internally they still viewed themselves as ugly, as unworthy, as not enough, their outside life never changed. However, the few patients that actually transformed instantly were the ones that believed that if they got the new nose, the new boobs, the new butt, whatever, it would actually make them more successful. And because when they got that, and they believed that because they had a new face or a new body, they would be more successful, they started acting that way. They started being more confident and going to seek new opportunities because they believed that they were worthy of it now. So he saw that your life doesn't change when your appearance changes. It only changes when you start to change your identity or how you view yourself. That pushed him to understand how do you actually change your identity without plastic surgery. And one of the ways to go about this is visualization. And it works because of three main reasons. First of all, the brain cannot tell the difference between what's real and vividly imagined experiences. So when you repeatedly visualize a new version of yourself, your brain fires the same neural pathways as if it already happened. The second reason is your brain is a servo mechanism. Basically, your brain acts like a goal-seeking machine. So it will move towards a target that you will give it. So if you give it the target of a new identity, your brain will act in your favor. It will try to move away from anything that contradicts this target. So whatever image you hold on your mind will be the set point your behavior will try to match. And then the third thing is that visualization creates memories of the future. So when your brain believes you've already been this person because you've visualized it and you've actually felt like you've experienced that version of you before, when you try to act like that person in real life, it won't feel as scary. You won't have as many things holding you back. And that identity, that new identity becomes natural and then momentum becomes automatic. Now, what do people do wrong? When visualization doesn't work, it's when people start thinking too much about the outcome, the achievements, and the external wins. So let's say you start visualizing you with more money or a fitter body or having a lot of followers or a new job. Those things don't work because they are too focused on an end result that doesn't say anything about how you're going to get there. Your identity is not a fixed destination. It's how you show up every day. It's the process. It's the journey. So the thing that people get wrong is that they start visualizing and fantasizing instead of building that identity. If you really want to know more details about how to do all this, you should read the book that he wrote, Psycho-Cybernetics. Now let's go into a 4-part method into how to actually visualize. So step 1 is to define the identity target. We're not talking about goals. We're not talking about outcomes. We just said that earlier, that that's what you should not do. But the self-image. Who is the 2026 version of you? What kind of person naturally lives the life that you want? What is the energy, the posture, the confidence, the discipline of that version? And also, how do they think? How do they speak? How do they make a decision? How do they deal with stress? Those are things that you want to just think about intellectually. You can write it down. You can journal about it. This will be the beginning template of how you're going to visualize. Because you need to kind of create some sort of clarity outward where you can just think about it before you start to project it inward. Now, the second step here is to create a mental movie. Your brain will respond to scenes, not sentences, okay? Now, if you can, I want you to close your eyes and try to step back and visualize yourself from an outward perspective. So try to think future you in 2026. How would they wake up? How would they move in the morning? How do they handle problems and talk to people? How do they train and work out? What are their habits? How do they eat? How do they walk? How do they show up to work? What is their tone when they speak? How do they respond to problems and pressure? And most importantly, how do they act when no one is watching? Try to really take some time to make that vivid and emotional, because your brain can only adapt when it's emotional imagery. It's not when you write something down and intellectually and logically think about what you want. It's when you have the emotions attached to it. So this is an opportunity for your brain to rehearse the future you. Now let's step into step 3, because this one is way more important. This exercise was good because you were able to imagine the future you next year from an outward perspective, but now you have to make it more personal. You need to step into this identity, really embody it. In psycho-cybernetics, they call it the theater of the mind. You don't watch the movie, you'll enter the movie. So basically, when you start visualizing this part, you have to visualize it through your own eyes. Does that make sense? Like, you have to be the one that is actually living what you just imagined to the prior step two. So now you're gonna go through the same exact process of imagining your identity through your own eyes and not as the observer. And I want you to really feel your new posture and feel it through all your senses. What does it smell like? What do you hear? What do you feel in your body? What does it taste like to eat healthy food? The more emotional and vivid you can experience it, the better you will be able to change, because that's what I said earlier. Your brain cannot tell the difference between what you vividly imagine and what's real. So when it's going to be time to start acting that way, it won't feel foreign. It will feel like you, because you will have lived it. You have to feel that sense of confidence in that version of yourself. You have to feel like you can hear your own voice in the tone that you want. And you know what really helps me when I visualize the future me is to kind of act in that way in small ways while I visualize. So let's say I imagine myself sitting tall. When I visualize, I kind of like put my shoulders back. And something that I really like to do as well is to have a slight smile on my face, because I'm like happy to be that version of me. You want to teach your nervous system that this is you. And now step 4 is to repeat this process daily until it feels so familiar and it just becomes who you are. Your new self-image will only happen through repetition and a lot of emotion. And you know, you don't have to go crazy and do it for a whole hour. Just start with a few minutes. And you'll see sometimes it will take time to warm up into it because you have to get into that state. Maybe initially you won't feel the emotions, but the more that you let yourself dream and really feel yourself, the easier it will be for you to trust that every time you do it, you'll be able to get into that state. It's just when you first try, it might be very difficult, but trust me, it will get better. It will get easier. Now, if you really want to accelerate the process of visualization, is to start trying to act that way in real life, to give yourself proof that you are becoming that version of you. And you don't have to go all in and drastically change your life, but just try a little thing so you can show yourself that you're capable of doing it. Because if you really try to change your life all at once, it could be hard and almost stressful to your nervous system, because new version of yourself that you're trying to create just doesn't match who you believe that you are. And at first, when you'll start acting like the new version of you, it might feel uncomfortable. It might not feel natural. You might feel like you're forcing it. You might feel like you're pretending a little bit. And you know, what's really going to be uncomfortable are the people around you that won't accept you as that new version of you because they've only known the old you. But you have to do it a little bit every single day. Don't try to go too crazy. It's kind of like exercise. Like, there's no point of doing this crazy workout on one day. You're not going to change your whole body in one day. It's going to be the result of doing it every single day that's actually going to change your body. It's the same thing with changing yourself and visualizing and acting that way. And you'll see that once your brain accepts that new version of you, your habits, your choices, your reactions, your confidence, the opportunities you notice, the people you attract, and the boundaries that you reinforce will all become so natural because it will just be part of who you are. That will be the sign that your self-image has shifted. And what's so cool with all this is you can dream really big. You should never set limits for yourself, because why? Why would you do that? Let's say you're someone that wants to start a side hustle. You need to envision yourself capable of doing that. Right now, one of the things I'm trying to envision for myself is becoming an entrepreneur. And it's really hard because the old me is the professional athlete only. And it's really hard for me to believe that I can do both. So I have to visualize myself showing up as this driven entrepreneur and driven athlete. I want to be built different. And being built different is doing things differently than most people. And everyone that I know, all the teammates that I am with, they don't really care about who they are outside of being a soccer player. They don't want to acknowledge that because it's scary. But I want to face my fears. And one of my fears is not knowing who I am outside of sports. So I'm coming on here on YouTube and I try to self-develop. And one of the things I want to become is an entrepreneur. So I need to visualize myself becoming that, because it's really hard to accept that in my world, because no one on my team is driven to have another business, because what we do already demands a lot. But I want to be built different, so I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to make it work. But it's very uncomfortable, so I have to train myself to believe that I can do it, and then see how my identity shifts and accepts it. And look, I'm in off season right now and I'm cranking up everything. I'm working so hard on YouTube and on school and learning. All the people that I know are just chilling and they're escaping and they're relaxing, which is fine if that's what they want, but I know that that's not what I want. If I do what they do, I feel uneasy and I feel like something's itching inside of me to come out, and I can sit with myself in that case. I know that I'm meant for more. So I have to use the techniques that I know have worked in my sports, but outside of sports. And I can't wait to keep sharing more techniques that I learned in sports that are so helpful, like the alter ego or the flow state, for anyone that wants to be a high performer, because everything I've learned as an athlete can be translated into any profession where you want to be the elite. Now, I know that it can be very overwhelming when you want to start to change who you are and you want to build a new identity, and you might not know which direction to start with because you're not really clear about what that identity is. That's why I have the challenge. First link in my description. You'll have daily prompts there that will really help you dig deeper into who you really want to become. Because before adding new habits and systems and creating a plan and goals, you need to know who you want to become in the first place, because that's the person that's going to make you achieve those goals. So I hope you give yourself some grace by understanding that it's not the lack of discipline. Like, yeah, maybe you lack discipline, but to gain more discipline, it's not about forcing yourself through it. It's about changing the version of you that isn't disciplined to believe that you are a disciplined person. It's funny, before I close this off, I want to give a little insight. One of the things that I say that I am is someone that works really hard. I've said that a lot in my YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, I'm just a hard worker. Why did I get straight A's in college? Because I work hard. Why did I become a pro athlete? Because I work hard. Do I actually feel like I work that hard? It doesn't even feel that hard to work hard. I just feel like I get the results because I tell myself I'm a hard worker. But basically all I do is do the work. And it doesn't feel hard because that's just who I am. And you don't feel like anything is hard when you just act as who you are. I hope this makes sense for you, but to me it makes a lot of sense because, I've seen it work on the opposite end where I was really struggling in relationships because I didn't think I was feminine. And when you don't think you're feminine, you're just going to act that way. And I was not attracting masculine men because I wasn't allowing myself to be in my feminine energy. So you see how what you believe becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you really want to be careful about all the beliefs you have about yourself and really start to change those beliefs. But you don't have to be so hardcore about how you're going to change. You really just have to visualize it, and it's going to make it 1,000,000 times easier. So I hope you do something different this time. If you want your life to start looking differently, you need to do things differently. So I hope visualization would be a good tool for you to start implementing for 2026. Now, thank you so much for listening and investing in your personal growth. I hope I see you in my community. If not, I will see you very soon in a new video. Love you. Mwah.